From a very chilly morning on a Tuesday, do a preview. Yeah, it's cold. I got woke up by how cold it was in my room this morning. That's how you know it's cold. So when your body goes, "Hey, this is stupid. Wake up." Anyways, let's go ahead and get things started because we got 20. I'm looking at the time on the video. 20 seconds. We don't have 20 seconds. We don't have 20 games. We've got 12 games tonight. There's 20 games. Yeah, there's double headers. Yeah, we're going baseball rules on this one, boys and girls. All right. First up, the New York Islanders are in Boston tonight. The Islanders are 30-15-6. The Bruins are 28-17-7. And I do have some concern when it comes to the Bruins. So let's take a look at these teams over their last 6 games. Yesterday I did the last 5. Today I'm doing the last 6, and I've cut out the record over the last 10 games thing. Most recent result for the Islanders, they won 4-2 over LA. Before that, they lost 1-0 to Tampa. It was a shootout, of course. They lost 3-2 to Chicago. They won 3-0 versus Anaheim, 2-0 versus Washington. And prior to that, they beat the New Jersey Devils 4-1. So, decent record for the Islanders over their last 6. Boston, they won their last game 1-0 over Washington, of course. They lost 3-2 to Philly. They lost 4-3 to Winnipeg. They lost 3-2 to the Rangers. They beat St. Louis 5-2, and before that they lost 4-3 to Philly. So yeah, it's been a rough past month for Boston fans. Maybe that win over Washington is the start of something. Tonight's going to tell us. Boston has won the only matchup between these two teams this year. If that matters, they've won the one matchup. Goals leaders on the Islanders, Lee has 18, Nelson 17, and Barzal has 15. Assist leaders, Barzal 31, Bailey 27, and Lee with 19. Your plus-minus leaders, Casey Cizikas is a plus 17, Nelson's a plus 16, and Mayfield is a plus 16 as well. On the Boston side of things, Pastrnak is the leading scorer with goals, or in goals with 30. I'm still trying to change my brain the way I'm doing this. Marchand's next with 19, and Bergeron has 16 goals to come in third in that list. Assists, Marchand 38, Pastrnak 32, and Krejci and Krug both have 30. So I went with top 3 in those categories. And in plus-minus as well, with Grzelcyk at plus 8, Carlo at plus 6, Bergeron and Kevin Miller both at plus 5. So what stands out between these two teams is it's a higher goal differential for the New York Islanders. And when you look at the plus-minus numbers, that's where it shows. Goaltenders. You should double-check that. Well, there's a couple of confirmations on the board. Nobody confirmed for the Islanders. Greiss is 14-8-2, 924 save percentage. Leonard 16-7, 4-932 save percentage. It's an important game. I'd throw Leonard in there. But either way, they're pretty solid numbers. Rask is going to be the starter for Boston, 15-8-4, 922 save percentage. He's got his job back. Halak will be the backup. He's 13-9-3, 918 save percentage. The Islanders' record versus the Atlantic, 6 wins, 2 losses, and 4 overtime or shootout losses. The Boston Bruins against the Met, bit of a difficulty there. They're 5-7-1. So we'll see if the Bruins are able to get that record more into the positive than it is right now with tonight's game. But next up, Vancouver. 24-23-6 now, and they're in against Philadelphia, 28-18-6. I haven't seen, but we're going to go ahead and declare that Edler's not playing tonight, and that is a huge void in the Canucks roster. Edler's had a fantastic resurgent season. There's a reason why he's been talked a lot about as a potential rental at the deadline, that maybe the Canucks could get a lot back for him, because he's playing very, very well. But with him out, being the Canucks' top blue liner, it'll be very interesting to see how they do on the second of a back-to-back against a Capitals team that should be pretty angry considering the results lately. Vancouver's results recently. They lost, of course, last night 2-1 to Philly. Before that, it was a 5-1 win over the collapsing Colorado Avalanche. They lost before that 5-2 against Carolina. They beat Detroit 3-2, beat Buffalo 4-3, and lost in a shootout to the Oilers 3-2 before that. On the Washington side, of course, they lost to Boston 1-0. That was after their win 4-3 over Calgary. Before that, they lost 6-3 to Toronto, 7-6 to San Jose, 8-5 to Chicago, and 2-0 against the Islanders. That's a lot of losing, and losing in different fashions. So for Washington, they have to reverse that tonight. And the Canucks are they're a decent test, but again, with Edler out and with the fact that they played last night, Washington won their only meeting so far this season. This will be their second and last meeting between these two teams. Goals leaders on the Vancouver side, Peterson, 23. Horvat and Besser now both have 18. Besser was kind of gifted that goal last night by Carter Hart, and he thanks Carter from the bottom of his heart. Assists leaders, Horvat 24, Peterson 23, and Besser and Goldobin both have 18 on that one. Plus minus leaders for the Canucks, Stetcher, who is underrated, plus 16. Peterson plus 14 and Besser plus 8. And I underrate Stetcher as well. So there are times where I get mad at Stetcher. But when you look at the actual numbers, he's probably one of their best overall defensemen. On the Washington side of things, Ovechkin leads them in goals, of course, with 37. Oshie and Vrana both have 15. So Ovechkin's kind of an island there. Assist leaders, Karlsson 40, Backstrom 39, Kuznetsov 33. Plus minus leaders, Michael Kempny plus 20, also an underrated defenseman. Karlsson plus 17, and Vrana is a plus 12. On the goaltending side of things, we know who will be starting, and I have to ask, why did they bring Thatcher Demko up? He's only played one game so far. Why did they bring him up? Honest question. I'm not trying to be sarcastic. I'm not sure. Markstrom starts tonight. He's 20-14-5 with a .910 save percentage. Demko is, of course, still 1-0-0 with a .923 save percentage. So are they seeing something in practice that makes them say, maybe Thatcher's not ready? Or is this just Travis Green saying Markstrom's the better goaltender? We're just going to ride him until he breaks. On the Washington side, it will be Holtby making Copley the backup. Copley's 10-5-3, .903 save percentage. Holtby's 18-13-3 with a .907 save percentage. Versus the Metro Division, Vancouver is not great. They're 3-7 now after last night's loss to Philadelphia, whereas the Washington Capitals are 6-4-1 versus the Pacific. So they're above 500 there. So we'll see how things turn out for them tonight. All right, next up, Vegas. The Golden Knights, 29-21-4, and they've really crashed. And when I did the video where I talked about the West and the struggles in the West with the teams that are going to make the playoffs, I didn't include Vegas in this week's that I did or the week before, but we're getting close. They can't afford to keep losing, and tonight they're in against Tampa. So Tampa at 39-11-2. Tampa's already set to win their 40th game, and the Ducks have 21 wins. I know the Hawks aren't much ahead of that. They have 20. Yeah, they're not ahead of that at all. They have 20. So, it's interesting to see that Tampa's basically lapping the field and still going. The only concern, of course, if you're a Lightning fan is, let's hope they're not burning themselves out, that we don't see a first-round exit. Highly unlikely, but it's happened before. And again, I point to the 96 Detroit Red Wings, who won the Cup in 97. All right. Over their last 6 games, Vegas lost to Florida 3-1. They lost to Carolina 5-2. They lost to Nashville 2-1. They lost to Minnesota 4-2. They beat Pittsburgh 7-3. So that's not nothing. But before that, they lost to Winnipeg 4-1. So Vegas, it's been a steady decline, minus that win over Pittsburgh. Tampa, on the other hand, they've picked it back up. They won 3-2 against the Rangers. Of course, they won in that shootout, 1-0 over the Islanders. They lost 4-2 to Pittsburgh. They beat San Jose 6-3. They lost 4-2 to Toronto, and they beat Dallas 2-0. So basically, it's this: if they play 500 hockey from here, nobody's catching them. But I don't get the feeling from Tampa that they're going to be willing to play 500 hockey, and they've won the only matchup they've had with Vegas this year. Goal scoring leaders for Vegas: Marchessault 17, Tuck, Karlsson, and Pacioretty all have 16. Assist leaders: Tuck with 24, Colin Miller has 19, and Marchessault with 18. Your plus minus leaders: Tuck with a plus 11, Schmidt with plus 11, and Stastny with plus 8. So Alex Tuck is their sulky candidate this year, the way that Karlsson was for them last year. Goals leaders for Tampa: Point 30, Stamkos 28. Kucherov, 22. Assist leaders, Kucherov, of course, 58. Point 35, and Stamkos with 31. Plus minus leaders for them, McDonough with plus 20, followed by Point at a plus 16, and then Kucherov and Killorn both have a plus 14 for the Tampa Lightning. No confirmation on goaltenders. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's going to be Marc-Andre Fleury against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And even if Subban's ready to go, it's not going to be Subban. And it won't be like SA if Subban's not ready to go. Fleury's 27, 15, and 4 with a 911 save percentage. Like SA, of course, won his only start. He's got an 871 save percentage. Did he win his only start? I don't think that he did. I think that's wrong. No, he's 0-1. All right, he's 0-1. You guys know. I mean, he's 0-1, right? It's fine. It's fine. That's going to bother people. When there's a number that's wrong on the board, it bothers people. Versus the Atlantic, this will bother people. Vegas is 3-6-1. So they play very well against their own division. Against other divisions, not so much, especially in this case, the Atlantic. On the Tampa side, I expect Vasilevsky. Demang would be the backup. He's 17-4. 906 save percentage. Vasilevsky is 21-7-2 with a 925 save percentage. Versus the Pacific, Tampa's 8-4. They struggle against the Central, not against the Pacific so much. So, and by struggle, I mean barely win every game. That's as close as Tampa gets to struggling, really. Sad but true. All right, next up, Anaheim. This is where Duck fans say, you can skip us today. Just skip us. Don't worry about it, Shannon. We're fine. Just skip us. 21, 23, and 9 now. This is getting just embarrassingly bad. And now they're in against the Montreal Canadiens, who are 29, 18, and 6. And Montreal's going to feel pretty good about seeing an Anaheim team coming in on the second of a back-to-back with just, it's been just disastrous results. Let's take a look, shall we? Over their last 6, they've lost 6-1 to Toronto, 9-3 to Winnipeg, 5-1 to St. Louis. Before that, they beat New Jersey 3-2 and Minnesota 3-0. And before that, they lost 3-1 to Detroit. Of course, they've lost 16 out of 18. So, even though they're 2-4 in their last 6, that's much better than they were before that. So, this just keeps getting worse for them. On the Montreal side, they beat Edmonton 4-3. They lost 3-2 to New Jersey. They beat Arizona 2-1. They lost 5-2 against Philly. Everybody's losing against Philly right now. They beat Columbus 4-1, and they beat Florida 5-1. So, this is a team that manages to take advantage of teams that are below them in the standings, with the exception of New Jersey. And we'll see if they do the same tonight with the Anaheim Ducks. I have seen nothing in the Ducks game to tell me that they're capable of turning this around because they're getting beaten on every single level. Goals leaders for Anaheim, Silverberg is still your leader with 12. Kasha with 11. Getzlaf with 10. We're facing the very real possibility there could be no 20 goal scorers in Anaheim this year. Yeah, it could actually happen. Remember, Kasha isn't coming back. Is Getzlaf going to go on a tear and get to 20? Not likely. Sprong going to hit 20? Not likely. Silverberg, if he can stay healthy, maybe. But yeah, that's how bad it is. On the assist side, Getzlaf has 23, Montour with 19, and Henrique with 18. Plus minus, Richie leads there with a plus 5, Sherwood plus 2, Grant with plus 2. Hard to find players that are currently in the lineup at all that have a good plus minus. On the Montreal side, Gallagher leads them in goals with 19, Domi with 17, Tatar with 16. Assists, Domi has 30, Petrie 27, Danault with 26. Plus minus, Danault has a plus 15, Victor Mete has a plus 14, and Jordy Ben, my boy, plus 12. I like Jordy Ben a lot, and I have no problem admitting that. I think he's a good player. I expect Chad Johnson tonight. I expect them to give John Gibson a break, considering the fact that he's been pulled in 3 straight games. Give John Gibson the night off. It doesn't matter. Johnson's 2-9 with an 886 save percentage. Gibson is 17, 18-8 with a 914 save percentage. On the Montreal side, Niemi, I expect to be the backup, but honestly, they may start him because look how Anaheim's scoring is. He's 8-5-2 with an 893 save percentage. Carey Price is 21-13-4. Very likely he gets to start, 915 save percentage. Versus the Atlantic Division, I got this wrong too. There's so much more work done with the way I'm doing it now than before. Versus the Atlantic, so there's so many different things for me to keep in mind when I'm writing it down. The Ducks are actually 9-5-4. They're decent against the Atlantic. Versus the Pacific, and I know that's the right division. Versus the Pacific, I'm going to have to change that because it's going to bug people. Again, in fact, what I should do. All right, so versus the Pacific, Montreal is 3-4-3. And I'll change Leg SA to 0-1-0. 0-1-0. There we go. That's a different color. That's going to... Yeah, anyway. Try to color code everything and then ask for it. But yeah, versus the Pacific, Montreal's only won 3 out of 10. So we'll see how this works out. This is their first meeting of the year. And we'll see how that goes for everybody. All right. Next up, Chicago Blackhawks are in a very interesting position. With a win tonight, they can pull themselves within way too few points for a playoff spot considering their record. They're 20-24-9. They've won 20 out of 53 games. But they're in this because they're chasing teams like the Oilers who are 23-24-5. So the Oilers have won 23 out of 52 games. Are you enthralled by this race yet? Because I know I am. Over their last 6 games, though, Chicago, very solid. 4-3 win over Minnesota, 7-3 win over Buffalo, 3-2 over the Islanders, 8-5 over Washington. The impressive thing there is 3 of the 4 are in a playoff spot, and the 4th was in a playoff spot not that long ago. They lost 4-3 to the Rangers. They lost 8-5 to New Jersey before that. That was the week that drove me nuts because I had just said they were playing better than their record showed, and then they just went out there and laid an egg the whole week. On the Edmonton side, they've lost 4-3 to Montreal. They lost 5-4 to Philly. Both of those games, they had a lead in the third and then blew it. They lost 3-2 to Detroit. They lost 7-4 to Carolina. They lost 5-2 against Calgary. Before that, they beat Vancouver. That was a shootout win, 3-2. So it's been a pretty steep decline for the Oilers. Just we're not talking about it as much because of just how bad the Ducks have been. Edmonton does lead this season series. They've won both games. So there's that. Edmonton has beaten Chicago both times they've met this year. Goals leaders for Chicago, Kane, who is absolutely their MVP by a mile, 31. DeBrincat, 26, and Taves, 23. Assist leaders, Kane with 45, Taves, 28, and Gustafsson with 23. Eric Gustafsson quietly having a very solid season himself. On the Edmonton side, it's all the McDavid show. 31 goals to lead him, 29 for Draisaitl, 17 for Chason. On the assists side, McDavid 45, Draisaitl 34, and Nugent Hopkins with 32 rounds out the top 3 there. Your plus-minus leaders, Connor Murphy leads the Hawks with a +7. Dahlstrom has a +6, and Cahoon has a +4. On the Edmonton side, Benning +7. Draisaitl, Russell, and Chason all have a +4 rating. So that's not bad. Goaltenders, no confirmation. I'd say it's probably Delia for Chicago. Ward's got a 9-8-4 record, 890 save percentage. Delia's 5-2-3 with a 922 save percentage. On the Edmonton side, I would go with Koskinen personally. He's 14-11-2 with a 908 save percentage. Talbot's 9-13-3, 893 save percentage for him. Versus the Pacific, Chicago's got problems. They're 1-10-3. Versus the Central, Edmonton, not bad, 8-6-1. So overall, the numbers actually favor Edmonton, but when you look at some of the teams that have beaten them, it doesn't necessarily matter with them right now. They seem to find a way to lose. So, the Oilers are definitely a team that's in trouble, and they're going to try to reverse that trend tonight against a team in Chicago that just won't go away. All right, next up, and the last game on this board is San Jose at 30-16-7 versus Winnipeg 34-16-2. You want your game of the night? Here it is. Possible conference championship preview. So you'd have San Jose out of the Pacific and Winnipeg out of the Central. It could happen. And San Jose's been playing pretty darn well, and so is Winnipeg. I know my wife has been outspoken whenever we watch Winnipeg games about how they have trouble playing the full 60 minutes, but they're still finding ways to win. San Jose, over their last 6, they beat Arizona 3-2. Washington 7-6. They lost to Florida 6-2. They lost to Tampa 6-3. Lost to Arizona 6-3. Bad road trip. Everything went bad for San Jose there. Before that, they beat Pittsburgh 5-2. And of course, that Arizona game, that was a trap game. Winnipeg, over their last 6, they beat Anaheim, of course, famously 9-3. Columbus 4-3, Boston 4-3, lost to Philadelphia. Like I said, everybody's losing to Philadelphia 3-1. Lost to Dallas 4-2 and beat Nashville 5-1. Winnipeg has won their only meeting against the San Jose Sharks this year. Your goals leaders for San Jose: Pavelski 28, Hurdle 22, Kane with 21. Assists leaders: Burns has 47, Carlson 40, and Couture with 29. Plus minus leaders: Brendan Dillon plus 20, Timo Meier plus 19, and Brent Burns a plus 9. On the Winnipeg side, Mark Scheifele leads them in goal scoring with 26, Laine 25, and Connor with 22. Kyle Connor, their MVP for the last, month and a half. Assist leaders: Wheeler has 54, Scheifele 36, and Bufflin has 25. Plus minus leaders: Scheifele's a plus 20, Trouba's a plus 15, and Andrew Kopp is a plus 12. Goaltenders, no confirmation, so I'll speculate. I would expect Jones for San Jose. Can he fix this? Dell's a 6-6-1 with an .891 save percentage. Jones has a 24-10-4 record, which looks great, but the save percentage of .896, got to fix that. Winnipeg, Brossoit, I think they should go with Hellebuck, and they will, but Brossoit would be kind of fun to throw in here. He's 10-2-1 with a .940 save percentage. Hellebuck, 24-14-1, .910 save percentage. But again, you kind of have to play him. He's your starter. So regardless of how much fun I think it would be to see Brossoit in this situation, likely doesn't happen. Record versus the Central for San Jose is 8-4 versus the Pacific. Winnipeg is 11-3-1. So Winnipeg enjoys seeing the Pacific, and San Jose seems to enjoy seeing the Central as well. So it's going to be an interesting matchup between two teams that could very well meet in the playoffs. It would have to be in the third round because I can't see San Jose dropping out of a top 3 spot, nor can I see Winnipeg dropping out of a top 3 spot either. That being said, this part of it is done. I'll get the second board up here, and we'll talk about the other 6 games. Okie dokie then. So, next up is Minnesota and Buffalo, and this is an interesting one because you have Buffalo, who've been on the slide for a while, and you have Minnesota, who are good, and they're bad, very often in the same game. Minnesota, over their last 6, they lost to Chicago 4-3, and that could end up being a key game. If Chicago completes this incredible comeback, or if Minnesota misses the playoffs by a point or 2, that's a game you can look back at and go, geez, if they'd won that. Dallas, they lost 3-1. They beat Colorado 5-2. They beat Vegas 4-2. They beat Columbus 2-1. And before that, they got shut out by Anaheim 3-0. So yeah, with Minnesota, you have no idea. No idea. This is a team that can beat Vegas and lose to Anaheim. So yeah, it's you name it. On the Buffalo side, they lost 7-3 to Chicago. They lost 1-0 to Dallas. They beat Columbus 5-4. They lost to Vancouver 4-3. They beat Calgary 4-3. They lost to Edmonton 7-2. So, yeah, Buffalo, much the same thing. Your guess is as good as mine what team we're going to get tonight. But for them, they've only won 2 out of their last 6. They've got to get some wins. They're at home. They play very well at home. And they've got a Minnesota team coming in that needs to win as bad as they do. Buffalo won their only other meeting this year. So Buffalo's trying to make it a season sweep. Goals leaders for Minnesota: Parise, 20. Stahl, 17. Zucker with 14. Assist leaders: Granlund with 31. Suter with 28. And Parise with 25. And plus minus leaders: Parise, Spurgeon, and Stahl, all at plus 3. Nice tidy right there. But it shows that Minnesota has had its struggles, that their plus minus leaders aren't very high. Goals leaders for Buffalo, of course, it's Skinner with 31. He has been a lot quieter lately when it comes to the goals than he was a month ago. Eichel 17 and Reinhart with 12. And as I said, Skinner's a very streaky goal scorer. It's just sort of how that works. Assist leaders: Eichel with 37, Reinhart with 33, and Ristolainen with 27. Plus minus leaders: Skinner has a plus 12, so he's ahead of Eichel, Dahlin, and Nelson with plus 6s. Dahlin's +6 for a team that's been struggling. Honestly, Rasmus Dahlin, I think it's going to come down to, for your final three for the Calder, I could see it being Carter Hart, Rasmus Dahlin, and Elias Peterson. And we can all talk about Peterson, just, he'll run the table, he'll get all the first place votes. I don't know that by the end of the year it's still going to be like that. I think Dahlin's had a much better rookie season than a lot of people give him credit for. He's not scoring at this huge pace or anything, but he's playing some pretty solid hockey for a teenager. All right, off the soapbox. Starting goalies, I expect Dubnyk tonight for Minnesota. He's 20-17-3 with a .914 save percentage. Stalock 6-5-1 with an .891 save percentage. On the Buffalo side, they've confirmed Ullmark. And I had wondered about this because Hutton's numbers were stalling, and I wondered at what point they were going to start giving Ullmark more starts. Hutton's 15-15-3 with a .909 save percentage. Ullmark's 10-5-3 with a .914 save percentage. The Minnesota Wild versus the Atlantic are 7-4. The Buffalo Sabres versus the Central are 2-5. So that's not a good record, and they've got to get that straightened out. But at least of the 2 wins, one of them was against Minnesota, so they're 1-5 against the rest of the division. Against Minnesota, they're 1-0. So that'll be an interesting matchup. And this is one of those nights where I'm going to be just going nuts trying to keep up with everything. But I'll do my best. Next up, St. Louis, who are at 23-22-5. They're in against the 21-21-8 Florida Panthers. Which Florida Panthers do you get tonight? As Jekyll and Hyde as any team in the league. Really, really hard to pin down which Florida team you're going to get. But you know what? They've been playing pretty well lately. They've been getting some results. Now, how sustainable it is, that's the thing. And how far they are out of the playoffs. As a Florida fan, you'll go, of course we're winning now. Of course we are. On the St. Louis side of things, over their last 6, they beat Columbus 4-2. They beat Anaheim 5-1. They're going for their 3rd win in a row. Let's hope they get it tonight because it's been a while. They lost 4-3 to LA. They beat Ottawa 3-2. They lost 5-2 to Boston. They lost 2-1 to the Islanders. So for St. Louis, it's been 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. Whereas Florida, well, they beat Vegas in their last game 3-1. They lost to Nashville the game before that 4-1. They beat San Jose 6-2, beat Nashville 4-2, beat Toronto 3-1, and lost to Montreal 5-1. That's not bad. That's not a horrible last 6. But because of how far they are behind, because they've only won 21 out of 50. Yeah, winning 21 out of 50 means that in the East you're dead. In the West it means you might get home ice advantage. It's just like that. St. Louis won the only meeting between these 2 teams this year. Your goals leaders for St. Louis, O'Reilly 19, Tarasenko 18, and Perron 17. Assist leaders, O'Reilly with 33, Schenn with 21. Perron and Schwartz both have 18 to round that out for the St. Louis Blues. Your plus-minus leaders, O'Reilly's a +17. Gunnarsson's a +10. He's quietly having a decent season. And Dunn and Parayko both have a +8. On the Florida side of things, of course, Hoffman leads them in goals with 24. Barkov and Dadonov both have 18. Assist leaders, Huberdeau 37, Yandel 32, and Barkov with 31. Plus-minus, Trocheck has a 0, and he leads them. Ekblad -1, Sevier and Haley both have a -2. So, it's been a rough year for Florida, and that's where it kind of shows when your plus-minus leader has a 0. Goaltenders, I expect Binnington tonight. Not Billington, Binnington. Binnington's a 6-1-1, .922 save percentage. I blame the announcers that said Billington instead of Binnington the other night. Allen 15-15-4, and .897 save percentage. He may be, if he's not playing tonight, he may have a sign on his back that just says, "Call me," and has like his agent's number on it. And that's for all the scouts in the crowd. Reimer's been confirmed to start tonight for Florida, and I get the feeling that Reimer's stealing the job from Luongo. Luongo's 10-12-2, .895 save percentage. Reimer's 10-8-5 with a .900 save percentage. A solid win for Reimer tonight, and yeah, he's their starter at this stage. It's a frustrating time for Florida Panther fans because it's the regular season, and that's what seems to happen every year. Versus the Atlantic, St. Louis is 5-3. Versus the Central, Florida is 3-5-1. So those numbers, we'll see how how they turn around for one or for the other. But St. Louis is in pretty good shape. Florida's not great at home, so we'll see how this turns out. Gonna be an interesting one. Next up, LA, coming off of a win last night. They're 21-27-4 now. In against the 24-7 New Jersey Devils. There's no greater example of how different the races are. 46 points for LA, 47 for New Jersey. LA, are they sellers? Probably, yes. Sounds like it. Their letter to the fans say so. But mathematically, they're still in this. The New Jersey Devils, 47 points in the other conference. Yeah, throw dirt on them. They're done. Yeah, no greater example. Over their last 6, LA beat the Rangers 4-3. They lost to New York Islanders 4-2. They beat St. Louis 4-3. They got killed by Colorado 7-1. They beat Dallas 2-1, and before that they lost 3-2 against Minnesota. The New Jersey Devils, they beat Montreal 3-2. They lost to the Rangers 4-3. They beat Pittsburgh 6-3. They lost to the Anaheim Ducks 3-2. Lost to the New York Islanders 4-1. Lost to Columbus 4-1. Yeah, there's a theme there. And what's interesting, of course, is that the goaltending doesn't look to be going the way that Devils fans may necessarily like. New Jersey won the only matchup between these teams this year. Your goals leaders for LA, Kopitar 16, Brown 12, Kovalchuk, Carter, and Iafallo all have 10. Your assist leaders, Doughty with 23, Kopitar 21, Brown with 19. Plus minus leaders, Clifford's a +2, Kopitar's a +2, Thompson, Ledoux, and Martinez are all +1s. So that's a positive, literally. On the New Jersey side of things, Palmieri is 23 goals, Coleman 18, Heischer with 16. Assist leaders, Hall still leads them in assists with 26. Shows that they do struggle to score. Heischer with 20 and Zajac with 19. Plus minus leaders, Lovejoy is a +5, Heischer a +3, Green and Coleman are both at 0. Your goaltenders, I kind of expect Campbell, because it's a back-to-back, right? Quick is 10, 13, and 3, 903 save percentage. Campbell's 6 and 9 with a 930 save percentage. On the New Jersey side, I expect Kincaid. He's 14, 15, and 6 with an 898 save percentage. Corey Schneider would be the backup. He's 0, 5, and 1 with an 852 save percentage. I know. The funny part was that I talked about Schneider. There were a couple times where I talked about what are they going to do when Schneider comes back. And there were Devil fans that said, well, Blackwood's playing really well. There's no reason to play Schneider. Just waive him. Just get rid of him. Do whatever you got to do. He's still here. And there's no point in burying him in the minors, because you got to try to get his value up somehow, which means maybe Schneider starts tonight. Maybe you give him that start, see what's going on. Versus the Metro Division, the LA Kings are 4, 5, and 1 versus the Pacific. The New Jersey Devils are 6, 3, and 1. So while this is a matchup between two have-nots, they're in different spots, different conferences, with different storylines going as a result. Even though, in terms of wins and losses, they're in very, very similar places. All right, next up, Carolina. The Hurricanes at 25, 21, and 6 in against the 28, 18, and 6 Pittsburgh Penguins. If Carolina's going to make the playoffs, this could be the game where they show they're going to do it. For real. For realsies, boys and girls. Carolina's been on a pretty solid run. They have to shake off whatever happened with the Calgary game, and I didn't really talk about the whole Lindholm thing, because that's something that we're going to forget. We've probably already forgotten it. But I think people were more upset about the Duck Duck Goose from the game before than they're upset about the Lindholm thing on the other side of it. Anyways, Duck Duck Goose just was awkward. Anyways, that aside, the Carolina Hurricanes last game was against Calgary. They lost 4-3. They beat Vegas before that 5-2. They beat Vancouver before that 5-2. They lost to Calgary before that 3-2, so they're glad Calgary's in the rearview mirror. Before that, they beat Edmonton 7-4, and they lost to Ottawa 4-1. And it's those losses that really stand out, because you can't afford it. They're 3-3 in their last 6. They can't afford to play 500 hockey if they're going to legitimately get into a playoff spot. Pittsburgh, on the other hand, their last game, they lost 3-2 to Toronto. They beat Ottawa 5-3. They beat Tampa 4-2. They lost to New Jersey 6-3. They lost to Vegas 7-3, and they beat Arizona 3-2. So coincidentally, Pittsburgh's 3-3. But because Pittsburgh's ahead of Carolina, both teams being 3-3 in their last 6, means Carolina hasn't gotten any closer to Pittsburgh in their last 6. So this is the night where they can start making up a little bit of ground on a team they need to catch in order for them to make the playoffs. They got to pass one of them. Might as well be Pittsburgh, right? That would be insane if Carolina knocked Pittsburgh out of the playoffs. Anyways, goals leaders for Carolina, 24. Niederreiter, 14. Williams and Ferland with 13. Your assist leaders. Aho with 36. Teravainen with 33. Slavin with 19. Plus minus leaders for Carolina. Aho is a plus 18. Is he going to get Selke votes? Teravainen plus 17. And Pesce with a plus 17 as well. Goaltenders, I expect Mrazek. He's been playing a ton. Especially with McElhinney out. Nedeljkovic is sitting the same as Demko. Maybe they text each other while they're both as backups. What are we doing up here? I don't know. Wish we were still teammates. Yeah, I missed that too. Mrazek's 11-11-3 with an 894 save percentage. Don't let that save percentage fool you. McElhinney's 11-6-1 with a 914 save percentage. On the Pittsburgh side, I expect Matt Murray. Dismissed 13-9-4 with a 917 save percentage. Murray's 15-8-1 with a 910 save percentage. Versus the Metro Division. These teams are both in the Metro Division, so this is not a mistake on my part. Within the division, Carolina's 7-7-2, and Pittsburgh 7-6-1. Can't really find a huge lead there, can you? You can't really find that wedge where you go, hey, when you look at the division matchup, crap. Pittsburgh has won the only meeting they've had with Carolina this year. So there's that. So maybe that's an advantage. Maybe. All right, next up. Arizona. So coming off of a tough loss last night, the Arizona Coyotes now get to go into Nashville. It does not get easier. And this is where things can become kind of a struggle. And we'll see how they respond after losing their third in a row last night. They're 23-24-5 now. They're in against the 31-19-4 Nashville Predators. The Predators, a team that are watching what Winnipeg's doing, realizing they don't have any room for error, and they need to keep the wins going, especially with the fact that Dallas has somehow forced themselves into the conversation for potentially second in the division. If Nashville loses this in regulation, second could very well be in play. Over their last 6, Arizona lost 5-4 last night against Dallas, of course. They lost 3-2 to San Jose. They lost 2-1 to Montreal. They beat Ottawa 3-2. They beat Toronto 4-2, and they lost to Pittsburgh 3-2. So they've won 2 of their last 6. Against the record of Nashville's, Nashville lost 3-1 to Dallas. They beat Florida 4-1. They beat Vegas 2-1. They beat Colorado 4-1. They lost to Florida 4-2, and they lost to Winnipeg 5-1. So on their side of things, they've won 3 of their last 6. And again, that's why it's really difficult for teams to catch up. Really, really difficult, because you just have to keep playing 500 hockey if you're the team that's ahead. And usually the team that's behind, because of the parity in the league, it's really hard to put together those huge winning streaks, unless you have a Carter Hurt, I guess. Arizona's won both meetings this year, though, so that's a benefit to them. Goals leaders, Clayton Keller is 11, Richardson 11, Fisher 11, Stepan has 10, Panik has 10, and Garland has 10 for the Arizona Coyotes. On the Nashville side of things, Arvidsson 21, Forsberg 18, Bonino 14, Smith 14. So that shows just how much more in the way of goals you're getting with Nashville than you're getting with Arizona. On the assist side of things, Keller 26, Ekman Larsson 20, Schmaltz with 18. On the Nashville side, Johansson, damn it, Doug McLean, 35 for Johansson, Ekholm 31, and Yossi with 29. Plus minus leaders, Hjalmarsson plus 8, Kempe plus 5. Connaughton and Garland both have plus 4s. Whereas on the Nashville side, Ekholm plus 25, Sissons plus 25, Bonino plus 24. So that's the tale of two cities on those numbers. Goaltenders, Kemper played last night. You can play Pickard tonight, but I'd recommend that they don't, but we'll see. Pickard's 4-3-2 with an 869 save percentage. Kemper's 11-12-5 with a 911 save percentage, but considering he allowed 5 goals last night, you're probably going to go with Pickard. On the Nashville side, you go with Rinne, I think. Rinne's 18-13-3 with a 914 save percentage, but if they go with Saros is 13-6-1 with a 916 save percentage. Versus the Central Division, Arizona's actually 6-4 versus the Pacific. Nashville's actually 7-8-1. So when you look at the interdivision matchup, it favors Arizona, and Arizona's won both matchups because we're in Bizarro World in the West, where of course that's the case. Of course it is. It's just weird. All right. Last but not least, Columbus 28-20-3 in against the 22-21-8 rapidly moving Avalanche. Are there various forms that I you have F1, F5 tornadoes, you have like Richter scale earthquakes. We should have like avalanche levels. Like we should have, well, yeah, we have the risk levels, right? That's right. Going through the passes on the Coquihalla, they have their risk of avalanche like it matters. Like if you're driving and you see snow coming down the mountain, you're gonna go, "Don't worry, honey, that's not an avalanche. They only had a moderate risk today, so that's just probably a moderate amount of snow." And then your car's buried. And right now everything's buried for the Avalanche. So their name is absolutely suiting them at this stage. Over their last 6, Columbus, they lost 4-2 to St. Louis. They lost 4-3 to Winnipeg. They lost 5-4 to Buffalo. They lost 2-1 to Minnesota. They lost 4-1 to Montreal, and they beat New Jersey 4-1. I'm only snickering because I'm picturing Tortorella doing this while I'm naming off the results, and looking at the guys in the dressing room going like this. Over their last 6, Colorado, they lose to Vancouver 5-1. They lose to Minnesota 5-2. They lose to Nashville 4-1. Those are all teams in their own conference that they need to beat if they're going to make the playoffs. They beat LA 7-1. They lost to Ottawa 5-2. That's huge. And they beat Toronto 6-3. So yeah, with Colorado, it's tricky. Columbus won the only matchup they've had this year. Goals leaders: Atkinson for Columbus with 28, Panarin 20. Dubois 19. Panarin is the assist leader, 39 until he's traded. Dubois 27, and Jones and Murray with 24 each. Plus minus: Anderson has a plus 14, Murray plus 14, and Panarin a plus 10. Goals leaders for the Avalanche: Landeskog still at 29, McKinnon at 27, Rantanen at 23. Assist leaders: Rantanen 51, McKinnon 44, Barrie 33. Plus minus leaders for the Avs: McKinnon plus 15, Rantanen plus 14, and Landeskog plus 12. So it's interesting to watch what's been going on with Colorado and Columbus, and now they get to clash with one another. So yeah, I expect some fighting tonight. Come on, show some fight back. Goalies for this one, I expect Bobrovsky's 19-16-1, 901 save percentage, but Korpisalo does play his share of games as well. He's 9-4-2, also with a 901 save percentage. Varlamov, I expect for Colorado, 13-13-5, 905 save percentage. Grubauer's 9-6-3 with an 891 save percentage. Versus the Central, Columbus is 6-4. Versus the Metro Division, the Colorado Avalanche are 6-3-2. So there you go. You're all set for tonight's 12 games. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.